Greetings everyone and welcome to the second part of the series. In this part we'll be looking at how to use Laravel Blade templating engine outside the Laravel framework. What we're going to do, we're going to head over to the packages website, and here we're going to search for Laravel Blade. We're going to look through and we're going to grab this one by Gensejas. So let's go ahead and get the installation command for the templating engine. I'll go ahead and copy that. I switch over to my editor, and here I'm just going to paste the command that we copied a minute ago, and now I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard, and I will wait for the Blade templating engine to get installed into our small folder. So I'll pause the video now, and when it completes installing, I'll come back. Alright, and the Blade templating engine is now installed into application, and now we can go ahead and start using it. What we're going to do, I'm going to create a new folder inside our up folder, and here let's go ahead and create a folder. In this folder, just going to call it Blade, like that. And inside the Blade folder, I'm going to create a new file, and this file I'm just going to call it Blade to be a class. So just going to call it Blade, and our file is created. I'm going to collapse the terminal, and here I'm just going to initialize my PHP file like that. And now I'm going to give a namespace to this file, and I'm just going to alias it to our app. Then I'll say Blade, or up, then Blade, like that. And then I'm going to import the templating engine from our vendor. So here I'm just going to say use, then JSON. So just like that. Then I'll head over to Blade, and then Blade class, like that. And then I'm just going to create our class. So class, this class, I'm just going to call it Blade, and it extends no class and implements nothing. And here it complains that Blade is already being used, and so here we can alias the Blade class coming from the templating engine, and we can say let this one be like what can we say? I'm going to say Laravel, then Blade, like that. So let's alias this class so that it doesn't collide with our custom class. So after that, inside this class, I'm going to create two methods. The first method, I'm going to create its public static method. So public static method. So let's go ahead and say static, like that. And this function or this method, I'm just going to call it a return template, like that. And the return template method, it's going to receive two arguments, and the first one will be the template itself, or the view itself that we're supposed to return to the function or any other method calling this function. So that's the first one, and the second one is the data. So let's go ahead and say data. This is the data that we want to return together, the data that should be displayed on this template. So, and if this data will be an array, and we can initialize this array to an empty array for now. After that, I'm going to initialize my Blade. I'm going to instantiate my Blade, And this instance, I'm just going to grab it and put it into a variable. So I'm going to say blade. I'm going to put the new instance of our blade into a variable, and this variable I'm just going to call it blade, like so. And then I'm going to say this will be a new Laravel Blade. So Laravel Blade, remember this is the name that we realized back here when we were importing the Blade templating engine. So I'm just going to say there, and this one receives two arguments. So the first one will be the folder to our views, or folder to our templates, and the second argument that this method receives is a cache folder. It needs a cache folder to store the cache of the views that we give to it. So the where we want to store our views, let's go ahead and say base path. And remember, base path, we defined this constant as a global constant in our config, and here we have the constants base path, and it's defined as a global constant, so we can just use it here. So it will be base path, and we are going to append base path to our views. So let's go ahead and say we're going to head over to resources. We've not created this folder yet, but we'll do that in just a few moments. Resources, then views. So all our views will stay in resources, then views. And then after that, we're going to pass the second argument, and the second argument will be a folder where we're going to store our cache. So here we're going to head over to, we will storing our cache in a folder called storage. So let's go ahead and say storage, and then inside the storage you're going to have another folder, and this folder will be called views, and then after views we're going to have another folder, and we're going to call it cache, like that. So we've provided the two folders or the two arguments that the Laravel Blade requires. The first one is the path to views, and the second argument is the path to the cache folder. So after that, let's go ahead and define our file. So which file we will be returning back. So after that, I'm going to put another variable. In this variable, I'm just going to call it file, like that, and this one will be same as, let's go ahead and define our path where we will look for this file. So it will be inside resources, views, and then after that we're going to append our template that it's coming to this function. So let's go ahead and concatenate our template with the path that we're getting from our folders. So let's go ahead and say this one will be the same as the template that's coming through this method. So like that, and then we're going to append the extension, and always the extensions for the Laravel Blade will be the name of the template, which is this one, then followed by dot, and then we have to say blade, and then PHP, like so. So we've append the path. So this is the file that we want to show back to our callers. Callers meaning the method or function that calls this static method we've created around here. So after that, we want to check if this file really exists. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say if an if block statement, and if file exists. So let's go ahead and say if file exists. If file exists, if file exists, and which file are we going to look if it's this file that we've created right here. So let's go ahead and say is the file that we've just created. Now if this one exists, then continue and return it, else return maybe an error saying that the file was not found, or the view that was passed was not found in this path. So if it's found, then what are we going to do? We're going to return. So return. And what are we going to return? We're going to return the blade that we defined here. We're going to return blade, and then we're going to say call a method inside the blade class, and this method is called render, and it's going to render our template. So let's go ahead and say template. Remember, templates, whatever we're receiving around here, and it's going to render the template and also the data that we're also receiving as an argument to this method, like that. So after that, we return that back to the callers who is calling this method. If if the file does not exist, then we can just for now print an error. Let's go ahead and print an error, and we're going to say echo and then we're going to inform them whatever they wanted does not exist or does not stay here. So the view does not exist. So let's just return that. For now, we might need to create a custom error page whereby we display our errors. After that, I'm going to create another method, which will be also static. So let's go ahead and say public function, and let me just add a static here so we can have an ease of calling this method outside this class. And I'm going to say render, just like that. I'm going to call this function a render, and it receives a template as well, and it also received data. Sorry, it also receives data as well, and we can put the default data to be a empty array, like that, so that we always have initialized our data. If none is sent back to us, we put our data as an empty array, like that. After that, we are going to echo, and whatever we're going to echo is we're going to reach over to the render template, and then we echo the template that's being given to us together with the data that it's being passed by the methods calling this static function. So let's go ahead and say static, and we say static, then static return template. Return template is a method, and here we also pass to this function the data and the template that we're receiving from the function that's calling this method. So let's go ahead and pass in here the template that we're receiving, as well as the data also that we're receiving, like that. Like that. And that's how we can now go ahead and use these two functions. We call these functions. When we call this function, then it returns the template to us together with the data that we want. So let's go ahead and see how really we use this one. We're going to head over to our home controller. Remember, here we returned an echo statement to our viewers to see what is being returned from this method. Instead of returning this method, what we can do, we can return a view. So let's go ahead here and say use. Remember, we're going to use now the blade that we've brought into our application. So let's go ahead and say use up, then blade, and then blade, and then blade, like so, like that. And now here, instead of just echoing this string, what we're going to say is blade, and then we're going to call the render method render. Remember, render is with the method we've just created here, this one, render method. When we call this one, it reaches out to the render template method, and it gives us the view, or it gives us an error if the view does not exist. So here inside the home controller, we say render. And what can you render? We've not created any views for now. Let's go ahead and create that. So here outside the app folder, we're going to create a new folder. So this folder, I'm just going to call it resources, like that. And inside the resources, let me create another folder. In this folder, I'm just going to call it users, and inside users, then I'm going to create a new file, and this file I'm just going to call it users, or I can call it index though, index.blade.php. remember, that's how we name the blade files. And this file that we want to return to our users. So let's go ahead inside the home controller, and here we're going to say, then we want to return users, and then inside users we have index, like that. So we have resources. I think that does not match what we defined in our, we say resources then views, resource then views. So it means inside resources, we're going to create a new folder and call it views, like that. And then we can grab users and put it inside the views, like that. So we have resources, views, then users, then index.blade, this one. And here the same, so users, then index. And that's all we need to have so that we can return a valid view to our users. So let's go ahead and test that out. So let's head over to browser and go to our application, try loading there. We have an error. So it says the class that we were looking for does not exist. So let's go back and see what could be the problem. Here we say gen, it's supposed to be with an n, like that. Let's try to save it again. Go back to the application and try it. The view now does not exist. Let's go ahead and see what the problem might be. And another thing I remembered, we are supposed to have a cache file and we did not create that. Let's go ahead and create that. So again, outside here, we're going to create a new folder, and this folder I'm going to call it storage, like that. And inside storage, remember, is where we have our views, then cache. So let's go ahead, and inside storage I'm going to create another folder called views. And now inside the views we're going to create another folder, and this folder just called cache, like that. So we have the cache file, the cache folder, and the view folder. So let's go ahead and try to test that out and see if it solves our problem. Let's go ahead over here, and since it doesn't solve our problem still, let's go ahead over to our editor and see what could be the problem. Resources, and here it's supposed to be C resources, like that. I'm going to copy that everywhere that I misspelled that. Resources. Okay. And I think that looks fine. Let's go ahead back to your application, and here now we get nothing. And remember, we have nothing in our users then index.play.php. What we can do, let's go ahead and just echo something. I'm actually going to say something so that we see if we are hitting this file correctly. Going to save that. Going to head over to my application, and now we have something being echoed to our application. That means we've installed and configured our templating engine correctly. So let's go ahead and see how we can bring data to this file. What I'm going to do, I'm going to head over to my home controller over here, and I'm just going to define an array of data. So what I'm going to say, just going to say user will be equal to an array like that, and here I'm just going to say name, and name, I'm just going to put down my name, and why not Alfred. Alfred Kakuli is my name, and then the next property of this user I'm going to say is the gender. So gender, and of course is male, of course. And the other thing I'm going to write here is maybe position for what, maybe position of what I'm doing. Okay, and I'm just going to say this guy's software engineer, like that. And another thing I'm just going to pass to this array is the maybe nationality, nationality like that. And nationality, of course, I'm going to give out my nationality, which is that one, Kenyan, like that. And now I've defined my user array, and after that what I can do, I'm just going to pass this method here, and here I'm just going to pass now my user, like that. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to my index inside the user's views, and here instead of getting this one, what I can do, I can say okay, going to say the user that we're receiving from the controller, and here I'm just going to put out the name, like that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to head over to the browser again, and now it prints out my name, meaning that we're passing the data correctly from the controller. In the future videos, we will get this data from the database so that we can bring it over to our application. So what we can do now is try to write child of our view. So remember, the way we work best in PHP is to define one file. This file will carry all our assets. If it's maybe a JavaScript, or it's maybe CSS, we define them most probably in one file, then all the other files will inherit from that file. So let's go ahead and create the same scenario. Inside the views folder, I'm going to create another folder. In this folder, I'm just going to call it layouts. For example, the layout could have our header, our footer, and our master page or main page. What I'm going to write here, I'm just going to say new file, and this file I'm just going to call it master.blade.php, like that, so that it carries all our other pages. And inside this page, I'm just going to say, for now, I'm going to say at yield, and it's going to yield the content of the other files. So this one I'm just going to call it content, like that. I'm going to save this file, then I'm going to head over to my users index, and I'm just going to cut this one for now, and I'm going to say add, and this one is extends. Then it extends what? It extends layouts, then master. It extends the layouts master, so this one will be serving the master page. And after that, I'm just going to define our section. So add section, and this section I'm just going to call it content, like that, and just going to remove this part here. And after that, I'm going to end my section like there, and inside the section now I'm just going to print the name of this user being returned from the controller. I'm going to save that. I'm going to head over to the browser. I'm going to refresh again, and again we see the same thing, although we've changed the structure of our pages. Now we have a child page and a master page, or a parent page, which is the master. So the master will be serving as a parent the child in our application. So what we can do now, actually, just going to grab this out, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to write a bootstrap template. So let's go ahead and say that, and do that. What I'm going to say is $, if you have the bootstrap plugin installed in your code editor. You can choose $, then it brings you the bootstrap 4, then $, that it's going to write bootstrap master template. So I'm just going to hit the tab key on my keyboard, and it imports all the assets that the bootstrap requires. And inside the body now here, I'm going to just paste my content. So like that. Let me go ahead to the browser and see everything works, and everything still works. So what I can do here, instead of the title, I want to print the title of each page. So what I can do here, I'm just going to define another section. So add section, and instead of content now, I'm just going to call it title, like that. And remember, this title could be coming maybe from the database in future, but for now we're just going to write users as our title. And now here I'm just going to end the title section, and after that I'm going to head off to my master, and here, instead of just writing title, I'm going to yield the title, yield and title, like that. So it takes the title coming from the child page. Let's go ahead and see if that one works. And you see now the title is users, and the title we defined here in the users page, like that. So that's how we manage to relate our children pages to our parent page, which is the master. Another thing we can do though is create another two files. For example, I'm going to create a new file here, and this file I'm just going to call it header or navbar. So I'm going to call it navbar.blade.php, and also I'm going to create another file here, and I'm just going to call it footer.blade.php, like that. Now we have footer and our navbar. If we go back here, we can say at include, and what we are going to include is layouts, and then we're going to the navbar, like that. And after that, then after content, we can also include our footer, like that. Save. Let's go to footer, and here we're just going to print the word footer, so like that. And let's head over to our navbar and do the same, but here we're going to print navbar or navigation bar, like that. Save. Head over to the browser. Now we have navigation bar, and after our content we have our footer. How good is that? So that's how we can inherit our templating engine. So what happens if we go to the wrong page? For example, here instead of saying users, we just write users X. Save that, go back to our browser and try to reach the same, and now you see the error comes, the view does not exist. So what we can do, we can head over to our Blade class and say, if we don't find the view, then what are we supposed to do? Let's go back to our Blade class, and here is our Blade class, and inside the return template here, instead of just echoing the this, we're just going to define a new template. So let's go ahead and say template will be the same as, we're going to write or create a folder inside of views, and this folder I'm going to call it errors. And inside errors, I'm just going to create one file. This file is called 404, which stands for not found. And then after that, we're going to define our file, going to define our new file, and now this file is going to leave or we can just, because this file actually is just the same as the other one, no need of creating this file for. So what we are going to do, we are still going to return the same, but now remember we have defined another template, so like that. So we're going to return now the new template to our viewers. So what we can do, let's go ahead into views, and inside views we're going to create a new folder, and this folder is just going to be called errors, like that. And now inside errors, I'm just going to create a new file, and remember we called it 44, then .blade.php. And this one we can also inherit from from the master. So what we're going to do here is just going to paste this one here, and here instead of printing the data, because now we don't have the view, we're going to say the page you are looking for could not be found. So the page you're looking for could not be found, like that. And here we're just going to say error, then we're going to put a pipe and say 404. So error 404 is our title, and our content will be the page you're looking for could not be found. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's head over to our application, reload, and now we see the page you're looking for could not be found. But remember, we also have our navigation bar and our footer inside the error page also, because the footer and navigation, they are being inherited by the master page, and now we have our title here telling us we have an error, and this error code is 404, which means not found. So that's how we use the templating engine outside the Laravel. And one cool thing about this templating engine, it comes equipped with the Carbon, and Carbon is time managed. It's like a time management tool for PHP. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with this Carbon. So inside our home controller, now let's return our correct template. Let's hover over and just make sure that it works, and it works. So what we can do here, instead of just returning that inside our index here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a class. So let's create a container, and this container is just going to be container fluid, so it takes the full width. Then inside the container, I'm going to create a card, so card, and inside the card, just going to create card header, so card header, and then after the card header, I'm going to add card body, of course. So dot card body, and after card body, I'm going to add the card footer, so card card footer, like that. And maybe inside the card header here, just going to say users, and the card body here, I'm going to add dot table, and then footer, I'm just going to say make inside the card footer, I'm going to say button, then button, then button success, like that. I'm going to hit tab, and here we are, we have our card header, and this is we can say this one to be body. This one is going to be header inside our body, and we just need to copy this one and bring it here, like that. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to create a table here, like that. And here just going to say this table and maybe table responsive, then table bordered, and then we can say table hover, like that. Then inside the table here we're just going to say t head, and inside the table head I'm just going to say th, and I'm going to have like, how many ths do we need? Like 4 of them, so th, and I'm going to multiply that by 4. And then after the t head, just going to have the t body, and the same, going to have tr first, then td, and we need like 4 of them again, so multiply by 4, like that. And here we've got to say tr, like that. Then here we can print name, and here we can print what do we have? We have name, gender, position, nationality. So here we have name, gender, position, and then we have nationality, like that. And here we have the same, so I'm going to say user, so user a name. Then we also going to have user, then our gender, and then again going to have our users position, user position, and then again we're going to have the user nationality, so user, and this time round will be nationality. So let's go ahead and say nationality, like that. Save, go back to the browser, and here we have our table, but we have something missing inside the position and nationality variable users. Let's go ahead and see what's happening. Supposed to be user though, so user position, user nationality, save there, head over to the browser. Okay, and finally position. Let's go ahead and see what's happening. Okay, it's position and nationality with capital letters in the beginning. So what we can do so for now is just change this one to position and another one to nationality, like that. Save, go ahead to the browser, and there we are. We have our table, and we print the footer in the wrong place though. So yeah, it's correct, because the footer, not the footer of our card, but the footer of our page. So you can see we have printed the data to our view correctly, and we have the name, the gender, the position, and nationality. What we can do, we can say we can add another thing. So let's play around this one and see. So let's go ahead and add another th for table head. So in here we're going to say age, and now here we're going to say, let's just copy this one and paste it there, and here we're going to remove this one, And now we are going to try the carbon. What we're going to do, we're going to say carbon. Let's see. Carbon. Then carbon. And then here we're going to say, let's try now for now and see if that one works. Carbon now. Let's go ahead and test that out and see if it gives us what we need. And it gives us what we need. So we have today, this time is 2020 11/06 22 that. So that's it's the carbon working. So what we can do, we can say what can we do? We're going to say, let me copy this one, put it here, and here instead of saying now, we're going to say pass. Going to pass 1992, and it is 08, and then we have 04, and this one I'm just going to say div in years, div in years, and what I'm going to say div in years is now. So let me go ahead and grab this one and put it there. Going to save that. Going to head over to the browser. Going to refresh, and we have the age. How cool is that? And now we have the age being calculated from the date you were born up to today. So here you can just say it's age in years. So in years, like that. And now we have our templating engine working correctly and inheriting from the master page. And I think that's the good thing about using the templating engine. It makes the work easier. We are able to inherit from many pages, and we are able to use the templating engine commands. For example, if we were to, you see we're using @, we can also go ahead and extend our blade if we wanted, and as well as using other cool stuff like iterating through the array. We can use the for, and you'll see how we can use that one when we start using the database. So we're going to stop here in this video. When we come back in the next video, we'll look at two things that we can also extend our PHP application to using some of the packages, and these packages we'll be looking at in the next video will be the environment, and the other one will be the Illuminate database. So feel free to comment on this video, like or dislike, bring up your critics, bring up your questions if you got some, and I will answer them if I get time, but I always get time to answer your questions. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to uh, get more information on anything or something you saw somewhere, you can subscribe to the channel. You'll be getting alerts. You'll be getting alerts with new content. It's available. You can also get my courses on Udemy. They're very nice courses on Udemy. They have already made. You can go ahead and to Udemy. I provide the link down below this video so you can go ahead and check them out, see if you like them, see if you need to have them, and if you need to have them, go ahead and grab them, and you can suggest some of the other courses that you need, and I will see what I can do. So thank you very much for being with me on this video. I'll see you in the next one where we'll be using the Illuminate database, a very cool stuff to use for every PHP programmer or every PHP developer out there. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.